Okay, first episode of the Stepping Up podcast. First, how do you feel?
A bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I can feel that. I can definitely feel that. I'm not used to these type of microphones
Not
myself.
at all.
Even after streaming for as many years as I have. I think it's 2 now.
I think the microphone's okay. I think it's the camera.
It's the camera,
It's
yeah.
the camera.
Well, as I said, I've looked into it, and and apparently YouTube's the best way to go. So if you guys don't like us on the camera, please tell us, and we'll gladly stop.
I don't like us on the camera. So.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess we'll kick it off. We'll start with why we're even here, why we're doing the Stepping Up podcast. Do you want to do a little bit of an intro there, Brett?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Brett. Hello, everybody. So I'm Tom's stepfather, and we have decided to do this podcast basically to, in front of the camera and on audio, to get to know each other better. We've had our challenges, which and experiences, which we'll talk about over the journey. And look, we just really wanted to use it as a way to try and talk some stuff through, but also try and help each other out and help other people out if it gets to that as well. So I think it's a good chance for us to do something together that, you know, we haven't had a lot of time to be able to do stuff together in the past, so it'd be a good chance to do it. Yeah,
we've been pretty much definitely not even in the same city, the same state, the same country
Yeah.
For a really long time, probably like 5-6 years. And as you said, there's been ups and downs, which we will get into throughout the journey. But it's also, for me, I was in a car crash recently. We'll go into that in a little bit, but a little bit of a life-changing experience, and I wanted to kind of document where I'm at, document where me and Brett are at. This would be something nice for us to look at in the future, even if nobody decides to listen. At least we will have it for ourselves. It'll be something we can look back on in 10, 20 years, and if I accidentally have a kid, then the kid can see it as well. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's taken a long journey for us to get here. Quite a long journey for us to get here. I've been in Malaysia. We're in Malaysia right now. We're in Kuala Lumpur. As you can see, that is, I'm not sure how well you can see it, but that's the city that behind us. And it's a beautiful one. It's my first time here. Second time here. I've been here for about 3 weeks. We're still climatizing. It's pretty hot right now. So if by the end of this, we're dripping in sweat. My shirt's see-through. Please bear with us. Where did you want to take it to first?
Well, why don't we start, since this episode is about your story and, was it dealing with...
your self-destructiveness. This is why
behavior.
I needed my notes. This is why I needed my notes.
I think, why don't we start? You mentioned your car crash. I think that's probably the accumulation of a lot of events a lot of issues. And, you know, I think... not only is it the accumulation of a lot of stuff, but it's also led to a few things particularly in the last couple of weeks being here in Malaysia as well. So maybe just give us a update or an overview of. Maybe start with sort of a high level view of where you're at now, and then we can work backwards from there.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea. So a high level is I have been applying for jobs the last like an absolute demon the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think. No, not 3 or 4 weeks. It's been like a week.
Been 1 week.
1 week. To me, it feels. To me, this is what you'll come to understand about my brain as the podcast goes on. Is for me, days seem like years, and they go on for ages. But I've been applying like jobs for like a demon, like no sleep. I'm addicted to LinkedIn now. Hit me up as a connection. That would be great. Trying to get those plus 500 numbers. But I've been applying for job interviews, and I've got an interview I've had interviews for companies I thought I'd never dream of. I won't say what they are, but they're companies I never thought I'd dream of, and they're companies that I didn't think I was valuable enough as a human to be able to partake in. And that's been really good for me. That's a really high point. This week's had a lot of struggles as well. There's been a lot of lows, but I've got back into streaming as a creative outlet. For me, and I'd say that's like a really high point. We've been exercising a lot as well. that's something I've not really done kind of since I was, God, I think the last time I played basketball, I was 18, maybe something like that. And fitness has just not been, like physical fitness or mental fitness has not even been a part of my kind of my physical vocabulary ever. It's always been partying, staying up late, being the fun guy, not really taking care of yourself. And that's kind of like what led to the car crash, I guess, is just always trying to be the fun guy. My life is fun. It's always go, go, go. As I'm sure you can attest to, there's always drama. There's every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, my friends will say it to me. It makes a lot of sense now. So I went to a psychiatrist about a week and a half ago, I think. Yeah, almost a week and a half ago. Yep. And I got diagnosed with bipolar 2. So that was an interesting experience because I've been to a lot of psychologists, in my life, and they've told me I've got depression. They've told me I've got anxiety, and this goes back as late as 16.
Yep.
Like we've done like family therapy and stuff, so it goes really long back. I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, panic disorder, you name it. And I normally sit there and wonder to myself.
It's not just the diagnosis I don't even know if that's the right word. The diagnosis that you get, it's also all of the medication that comes with all of these different things as well. So you've been on a
shopping
multitude.
list.
Yeah.
I've been on an absolute shopping list. I've basically been a pharmacy myself of what I've put into my body, and none of it's really worked. I've become codependent on one of them. I'm currently coming off citalopram, which is something a lot of people would take. It's probably up there with the most common one for antidepressants, and that's meant to combat my lows. But bipolar 2 made a lot of sense to me. I was sitting there with the psychiatrist, and
this was a psychiatrist, not a psychologist.
Correct.
And a psychiatrist you'd not seen before, had you?
No. So in Melbourne, which is where we're from. Well, you're not from there, but for where I'm from, I'm a Melbourneite. I'd never been referred. I've done some really stupid shit in my life, and I've never once been referred until I crashed a car. And that there's a stark difference between Melbourne and Malaysia. I won't go too much into that, but I've been fortunate enough to finally go to an actual psychiatrist, and he's fantastic. Hopefully. More people get a chance to go to the psychiatrist, but where was I? My brain. I'm going to have to edit this part out, that's for sure.
So you were just talking about the crash, and then you were talking about, you were saying you were about to say you went to the psychiatrist for the first time and got diagnosed with bipolar 2.
Yeah, so diagnosed with bipolar 2. So every time I've sat getting a diagnosis or pills, it's always like, but here's something else that isn't me, for example. I understand I have all these symptoms, but this specific thing isn't me. So for a long time, I thought I told everyone that I was really narcissistic. And what was explained to me by my psychiatrist was that because of citalopram, I was just bouncing between normal and hypomania. And for anyone that doesn't know what hypomania is, it can be anything from overspending, which I do regularly, living beyond your means. It can be if you're hyper-focused on one task for a certain amount of time. Self-destructive behaviors, which is what I wanted to talk a lot about today, as to kick things off, because I know a lot of people that do have these self-destructive tendencies that I know that can relate to exactly where I am, especially growing up as a DJ through quite transformative years, and being around some of the darker side of things. There's been some really self-destructive people in my life, and self-destructive people that have come and gone and been in jail and out of jail. But there's also those self-destructive people that want to get better like myself, and it's not just, they're not a lost cause, I guess, is what I kind of got from, it's another reason I wanted to do this podcast, I guess, is because I started doing writing during hospital, and I'll put the link in the description for that one. we both started creative writing, and I do enjoy that, but I can find it easier now to talk than I do to write.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of cycle that I'm in. And post-crash, I couldn't talk properly. I had a stutter, and this wouldn't have even been possible. So to even be 2-3 months post-crash, being able to do a podcast in front of lights and things like that is kind of impressive. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got diagnosed with bipolar 2, and it makes sense. I've had 0 sleep over the last week. So forgive me if I'm not as sharp as I will be in the coming episodes.
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, with new diagnosis comes new drugs. So
True. Yeah.
And I think one of the things that we should cover off in the future is a couple of things. And we should start saying as well, we're not doctors. We're not any medical profession at all. All the stuff we talk about is just from experience, not from our own views. It's got nothing. There's no medical fact to a lot of what we will talk about.
It is just the documentation of our experiences. We definitely aren't trained professionals, and we both have a lot of shit wrong with us. Like we're not perfect humans, and that's what I think Brett came up with the name for stepping up. Is as we'll get into, our personal relationship went very, very far down. And there would have been one point where if you had said to me when I was 16, 17, that I would be sitting here as a nearly 25-year-old in a couple of weeks, across from my stepdad, talking shit out on camera, of all things, I would have told you you're joking. I would have thought you were a madman. I thought you would have been the Joker from The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
some
done it.
kind of sadistic. You wouldn't have done it. You wouldn't even do it. You wouldn't have even done it. Exactly.
No.
So, so we've come a long way, and even in that respect. So there are new medications I'm on at the moment. That's causing the lack of sleep, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Yep.
I can dive into the self-destructiveness. There's a lot. It's a bit scary. It's a bit scary to talk about.
So
maybe if you want to guide that.
Yeah. So obviously we've got to the place now where you've been, and just to set up sort of where we're going to go with this podcast, videocast, the whole thing. Obviously we are going to talk about and try and sort out some of our own issues and talk through stuff together, but a lot of what we're finding is that a lot of things have, as we've said with Tom, have sort of come to a critical point because he did nearly kill himself in a car accident. Had some bad head injuries. His back's still broken. So there was a big sort of critical turning point that we've got to, but there's a lot of things that we can talk about through this. There's a lot of medication that Tom's been on over the journey that he can talk to from just experience around what it's done to him, how it's done. We're not here to bag the medical profession or anything like that,
no.
I think there are going to be times where we talk about what's lacking, particularly
what can be improved,
what we've seen. But to start it all, it's probably good to you can either go back to very recent history and how you've been feeling through lockdown and all that sort of stuff, which I think a lot of people will relate to because everyone's struggled in lockdowns and everyone's struggled with mental health, and it's become more and more important and more relevant for a lot of people, and probably a lot of people who didn't expect it to be a big part of their life. Lockdown's really probably uncovered a lot of things. So there, or you could go back to when you were a child, Tom.
Go back as far as I want.
Lie down on the couch and go that far if you want to. But
no, I think I'll keep it at lockdown because there's you can go real far back. And if we decide to do that, we'll decide to do that. But I think you made a good point about lockdown because it really has highlighted a lot of things for a lot of people. And from just people I know experience, getting back into social settings is really hard. And there was a day in the hospital, actually, which was my own personal form of lockdown, where I wasn't allowed to have any screens or lights for 24 hours. And that really highlighted in my head what was wrong with me or what I thought was wrong with me, and a lot of thinking time. And where I'm from in Melbourne, we had the longest amount of days in lockdown in the world. So that was difficult as well. At the start of lockdown, I had an old housemate move out. So I was in lockdown completely by myself, just me and my little dog Bubbles, which I miss dearly. She's still back in Melbourne. And I figured out how much I can't cope with being lonely. It's a really big thing for me. I just can't be lonely, and we've spoken about it in the last couple of days. External validation's quite a big part, and I kind of found that out through COVID, to be honest, because before that I wasn't really self-aware, and through COVID, funnily enough, through the need of attention, I started doing things like collecting Pokemon cards and made a couple of YouTube videos, started Twitch streaming, and that's kind of led to here. But being by yourself that much kind of brings out the demons. So I started drinking a lot. About a year, 2021, it was a year into the pandemic.
Yep.
Yeah, so at the start of the pandemic, I was doing it kind of just, the self-destructiveness just kind of ramped up and ramped up and ramped up. So at the start in 2020, it wasn't too bad. I came back and there was a lot of depression and things like that, but I was on Discord most nights. That was when people were still happy to have the weekly catch up and drink on Discord or Microsoft Teams or whatever it was at the time. And it was still kind of fun because it was like, we're not working. Look at all these days off we have, like let's have fun with it. I think me and my friends like found this new way of gambling and that we loved.
So you weren't one of these people that decided that they'd get super fit then during lockdown?
God no. I wish
get super healthy,
because my best friend, and
I hate those people.
I'll shout him out, Adam Jacklin, my man. He did get super fit. He did go from being the shape I'm in now to absolutely ripped out of his mind. So shout out to you, Adam. If you
get a haircut,
if you do watch it, you did get a kind of haircut.
Very good. All right.
You kind of got a haircut, but not too much of a haircut. So I didn't go down the fit route. I went down the drinking and self-destructive route, which you only really see the fit route on Instagram and socials like that, right? You don't see you don't see the bad side because nobody's posting, except me, because I'm special in a certain way. You don't really see, I got into a car crash or things like that on your social medias. So I think that's where the self-destructiveness kind of started. To ramp up was when I was especially in 2021. We got released for a bit in 2020.
Yep.
We got to go to events and stuff. I still was not completely over the previous relationship. She got to experience some cool things that I didn't, and I just wasn't coping. My family was overseas. My family in Melbourne, I wasn't able to access, and I had no sense of community anymore. It was completely stripped away from me, and all my family at the time, I'd call it, was online, whether it be through Twitch, my community that's stuck with me for the last 2 years, or you guys. We caught up as much as we can, but we weren't doing family meetings at that stage. So I think I'd maybe spoken to you guys like maybe 4 or 5 times throughout 2020. So 2021 rolled around, the drinking just kept ramping up. My Twitch streams consisted of me just drinking alcohol and doing dumb shit. There was no planning of content. There was no genius behind it. My channel was growing because people were coming to watch me do stupid stuff.
To just self-destruct.
Just self-destruct, literally. Just watch this guy just absolutely tear his body apart. And I got to admit, I would find that entertaining to watch, but after a while, like being the guy, there's a Simpsons episode where Homer's becomes the cannonball guy, and because of his gut, he just gets shot over and over. And I was the cannonball guy. It got to that stage. I remember saying to my mum, she was like, "You sure you're not drinking too much?" And I was like, nah, like I'm good. Like I'm under control. It's not every night. It's like once a week. Everyone drinks once a week, whatever. And then came 2021, January the 26th or 27th, whatever Australia Day is, 26th. I was streaming. I was drinking. I was doing a lot of shoeies. For anyone that doesn't know what a shoey is, in case you're watching from overseas, a shoey is when you pour a beer into a shoe and drink the whole thing, or whatever alcoholic alcoholic drink of choice. Daniel Ricciardo's recently made it very famous. So I was on my way to doing plenty of those. It was mostly fueled by money and need for attention. People would pay for me to drink, and I thought that was fantastic. But I was also really addicted to cigarettes. I have a really addictive personality. And I was like, fuck, I really need cigarettes. And when I'm drinking, that's when the lack of decision-making really comes in. That's when it goes turbo time. That's when the bipolar hypomania becomes so recognizable. I don't know how nobody's pointed it out yet.
Yeah, and I think that's an important sort of distinction as well, because everything you've sort of said, most people will have experienced some of it.
Oh, absolutely.
During lockdown, there's a lot of people with similar stories, but as we get through it all and they get to understand it, the bipolar 2 makes the extremes more extreme for everybody. So some people might go through and have an addictive behaviour. Some people might go through and not have access to everybody else and feel a bit depressed and things like that, which has been very, very normal for a lot of people through lockdown. But it's the bipolar 2 that just makes the extremes a lot more extreme. So the manias are high and long. The depression is deep and long, and it makes those things a lot more difficult to get through at both ends.
Well, speaking on the depression, do you want to give a visual description of what my house looked like?
No. So we turned up. So look, we knew Tom was having problems, obviously, and we've been away overseas here in Malaysia, and we finally got back to Melbourne. April. So April 2021, though, right?
Yep, April 2021.
Yeah. So there's been a year of lockdowns and a year of COVID and everything. So it's been a bit of a mess. But we finally got back because of restrictions and everything. It was hard. So we got back, and we knew Tom had been struggling. We knew he was living by his own, and we knew that he probably needed some help, and that one of the things that we thought would help him really would be good for him is that we go in, we help him do a bit of it was autumn, but a spring clean of the house, get him sorted out a bit, get him a bit more shipshape, and try and change his surroundings a bit to make him feel a bit better, and to help him out, and that.
And my surroundings weren't great. Where I was living was not the nicest place.
It wasn't the nicest place. It was yeah. I mean, it was as far as blank canvases go, it was pretty ordinary.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a really low base, but.
Correct.
But it was So I sort of knew it wasn't going to be great. We knew it wasn't going to be good. We knew you were living a lot on McDonald's and KFC, and So we knew there'd be some rappers around and that sort of stuff. We knew that Bubbles was basically had the run of the house. So Tom was never going to be he's never going to be a great dog trainer.
No, God, no.
So we knew Bubbles didn't have a lot of rules around her, and would chew or.
For context, Bubbles is a black French bulldog. That is the love of my life.
Yeah. So great dog, but in the house, left to her own devices, not so good.
She's a demon.
Yeah. So we knew it wasn't going to be great, but if you've ever seen the show Hoarders, just imagine one of the bad hoarders' houses, but not with really cool, interesting stuff, just with rubbish. Once they pick up all the interesting stuff and they just get left with the rubbish, that was what it was like. Yep. So, and it was really clear walking in that you were walking into a house with somebody with mental health issues, like serious mental health issues, not just had been in lockdown for a couple of weeks and was struggling. Someone with serious long-term issues.
Absolutely.
And it was clear that no matter what we did, we knew it was just going to go back to that. Once we left. So we spent the best part of a week cleaning that place up. It was a solid 2.5 days, and then the bits around the edges and getting the lawns done and all that sort of stuff.
It lasted about 3.5 weeks.
Yeah. So, which probably did what we wanted it to do. Probably got you up out of a down period.
It did get me out of a down.
Picked you up a bit.
Yeah.
And then you could maintain a little bit while you were up, but
Correct.
then as soon as you went back again,
Exactly. Literally, it was about 3.5 weeks, and I was feeling. It makes more sense to me now because of the diagnosis. I was high and mighty. I was like cleaning my house.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to since I've been here. I made a really big point of making sure my room was like super clean and everything was like almost perfect. And I've been in a bit of a down cycle for a couple of days, and there's parts that are messy, and not crazy messy. There's no like wrappers around or anything like that, but it is not that same level of clean. It's very hard to maintain like a base level. So that's kind of where I was at during lockdown. That was post not the peak of my self-destructive behavior, because I did top that this year. But so what happened was, I on Australia Day was streaming. I wanted to, and I've spoken about this on my YouTube channel, I think on a different YouTube channel, but I was streaming. I wanted to get cigarettes really bad. I've been smoking since I was like 16 or something like that. And I found I got there. The shop was closed. It was about 7:30. It was normally open. I was really pissed off and really drunk. I'm not a violent guy, so I know I definitely did not swing at these people. But there was this group of 5 blokes. They had cigarettes. They got the last pack. It was kind of like going to the shops on Black Friday and someone getting that new vacuum cleaner that you wanted at 99% off. They had that to pack cigarettes for me, and I was willing to pay them a ridiculous amount. Like,
it's the weirdest thing to buy at Black Friday.
It was a vacuum cleaner. yeah.
That's a really weird example.
Yeah,
carry on.
Yeah, no, that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like a nice vacuum cleaner.
It's all that talk about cleaning.
Okay. It's that's a good point, talking about cleaning. But so it was that golden pack of cigarettes, and I really needed them. There was nothing. It's what I'd called Tom logic my whole life, that now I know is bipolar 2 and hypomania, is there is nothing you can do to convince me that I am wrong, and that isn't exactly what I need in that moment. So I basically was like, I offered them like I offered them like $80 for a pack of cigarettes.
Jesus.
Yeah, and cigarettes in Melbourne at the time were worth about $24. So I couldn't believe that they weren't just giving it to me. It couldn't make sense to me why the hell they would not just give it to me. And initially they walked off, and I kind of like walked after them and was just hassling them. And I was like, give me the fucking cigarettes, man. Just take my money. I don't understand. Like, you're young. I not grew up, but I was living in a very poor socioeconomic area. And I didn't even have the money to give them like $80. Like, I had it on me, and I could give them $80, but realistically,
you really couldn't afford to give
away $80 for a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I chased them down. I don't remember much after that, but they beat the shit out of me, and I ended up in hospital.
Did they take your $80 as well?
They took my money, and they took my shoes.
They took your shoes.
They took my shoes.
Were they good shoes?
They were nice shoes. Yeah. So that net loss like $200-300. And all I remember, so it was like there was a lack of consciousness. All I remember is waking up coming to consciousness, not waking up really, in my bathtub. And I called my mum, and I was like, Mum, holy shit, this is what's happened. I've since been filled in. What happened was I'd somehow got home.
Well, before that, you chased them. They'd got on a bus.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And you got on the bus.
Yeah.
And were still hassling them on the bus.
Okay, yeah, I
then
forgot
you
about
got
that
off
part.
the bus, and then they went to town on you.
Yeah, okay. So I
then
definitely
you had to get home
deserved it
somehow, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. I see. I completely forgot about that part because I don't remember most of it. So there you go. That even speaks even further to how self-destructive it was. So I'd got home, and I've only been told that I came on stream for a brief second.
Yeah.
The video got deleted straight away by one of my mods at the time, Jackson. He did the right thing. He just deleted it. He was like, this shouldn't be on the internet. You were obviously very unwell. I was covered in dirt and blood, which is against Twitch terms of service anyway.
Yeah.
So at some stage I decided that I needed a bath because I felt like shit because I'd obviously just had the shit beaten out of me. And I called my mom, and I was like, Mom, I've been assaulted. Like, I don't know what to do. And like, for context, Mom lived on the other side of the world. Can't do anything about it. She's like, call the ambulance. I don't remember. Well, apparently, I didn't call the ambulance. I called my auntie, and she called the ambulance.
Yeah.
So, that was destructo point, critical point number 1, and there's 2 of them. But that kind of showed me how destructive I could be, but I just didn't know it at the time. I still went through another whole year before I hit critical point number 2.
Yeah. But what happens, because you've also been, when you were 13, 14, had a couple of head knocks.
True, yeah.
Had some concussion issues and had some issues with just concussion and stuff. So your head's not, apart from the mental health stuff, your head is a little bit fragile
structurally
sometimes
not sound,
because you've had some serious knocks, right? And then you had the head knock. So what you had was not just what we know now as the bipolar 2 and just having your extreme issues, but you also had, as soon as you get a knock to the head, you also have long-term concussion issues and stuff like that, right? So that probably helped you a little bit. In when I say helps you a little bit, spreads out your really low periods, because straight after that, then you're not in any position to do too much. So for the next 6 months, you had brain concussion issues to also deal with, which stops you from drinking as much, which stops you from doesn't stop mentally going, but it just slows you down slightly.
Yeah,
because
after
you've
that,
got
I
to be
didn't
a little
drink
bit thinking about what you're doing, right?
After that, I didn't drink for about 7 months.
Yeah, see, and that's
even till now, I think I've drank probably 12 times, 13 times since getting assaulted.
Yep.
So and you don't have to do real life. Once you have a head injury that bad, you stop doing real life. So it's easier to kind of not be as self-destructive. And then the second I started to feel all right, self-destructive mode kicked back in.
Happens, yeah. Once your head starts feeling better.
It got explained to me the other day that for anyone that might just have the same double dose of head injuries, because I think I'm up to about 8 concussions, serious ones, and I've been knocked out 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
The latest one would have been the longest one and the most damaging one. But that is important context, and it's been from 13 to 24, 25. And it does really mess with you. I've had short-term memory issues that I'm still having. I think it's a little bit better now, but short-term memory issues, mood swings, which is bipolar 2, but it's also really common.
Doesn't help with the head injury stuff.
Not at all. Mood swings. That. What else? There's a whole long list. One period when I was younger, when I was 14, I was fainting a lot.
Yeah.
In the house we lived in McLeod.
Obviously, your speech was no good. For a long time.
After this latest one, I couldn't speak properly. I was stuttering, and I was really embarrassed and really down about that, because I've always been such a loud, outspoken person. That I seriously couldn't get through a sentence. And it was really hard for my family to be able to hear me like that. It was like a whole new person. So that is important context with the head injuries. I'm glad you brought that up, because I would have forgotten. I would have forgotten about the head injury side, funnily enough, or ironically.
It just layers stuff, but it also just shows, like when you have your episodes, just the stuff that comes from it, not just, obviously the car crash is one thing, but putting yourself into those positions when you do have issues anyway, that you've got to be careful about, getting another concussion and things like that.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
So any person without the bipolar who's not having such extreme swings and mania and things like that isn't necessarily going to put themselves into those positions as often as you will, and that's sort of a double whammy that you get served every time.
That's the thing I only realized till recently, and that's kind of why the title of this video will be how to deal with self-destructive behaviors, is because I've realized, and what you don't realize while you're doing the self-destructive things, everyone does self-destructive things, but if you do it as often, or if you're starting to notice at home, once again, not a medical professional, but if you are noticing that, from my personal experience, is you can justify it. It's a very easy to take a victim mentality. Like, oh shit, I had a car crash. Oh shit, I got beat up. Oh shit, someone tasered me, for example, is a story that has just happened. Like, I've been tasered at someone's house before. Like, there's a lot of
Like by choice or
not
as
by
a joke
choice.
or
They had a taser as a joke,
right?
and I got tasered. And
Why did you get tasered?
They were tasering everyone.
Right. Okay.
So it was like a party trick,
Right,
but it
okay.
went really bad for me, and I like spazzed out, couldn't sleep for 40 hours. So it obviously did something to me. So there's a lot of stories that like I have that I could literally just speak about that are so many destructive things.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just I'm having fun, and these things are happening to me. The world hates me.
Yeah.
I'm the most unlucky person ever. And then there's days where my friends would just say, "How the fuck did you get out of that?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you're just so lucky as well at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it rapidly swings. And then recently, what I've realized is that, as you said, if I wasn't as self-destructive, I wouldn't have been in a lot of those situations, and a lot of stuff wouldn't have happened to me at all. I wouldn't have a lot of the head injuries that I'd had. A lot of the earlier ones that I got were unavoidable. It was sport.
Yeah, a lot of sport ones.
Sport, and one
exactly.
was from bullying and stuff like that. But the ones that I've had...
Were you doing the bullying, or was the bullying happening to you?
The bullying was actually happening to me. That was pre me being a bully.
Right, okay.
So it kind of... I was bullied and then flipped into the bully, which is... I mean, I can talk about that another day, but
I wonder how common that is.
I'd say, I don't know, because I think it either goes both ways. It's kind of like if your dad's an alcoholic, you're either an alcoholic or you hate it.
Or you're really against it.
Yeah, there's no real in between.
Yeah. But if you've been bullied, how many people who have been bullies become bullies?
I'd probably say not a lot.
Yeah.
I'd say not a lot, and I think it is pretty rare. Well, I wouldn't know without speaking to someone that's done the same thing, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't know if... All right, it's an interesting question. I'd like to find if you have done the exact same thing and you're actually willing to admit to it. Because I've done an apology tour, pretty much.
Right, okay.
People I've gone to high school with. Every time I've caught up with them, I bullied the shit out of someone, like real bad.
Yeah.
Basically convinced, like very manipulative, convinced everyone just not to be a friend.
Yeah.
Based off a small mistake she made as a teenager.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee that would have stuck with her for a really long time.
Yeah.
And at parties, like when I was 18 and 19, I was starting to become self-aware that I had been a bully for a couple of years. And I went on a massive apology tour. Like I'd always wondered why so many people from high school like hated me. Like they hate me.
Yeah.
Like if they listen to this, they'll be like, fuck this guy. Like they probably wouldn't even listen to it. On the off chance that they did.
Yeah.
They probably didn't know me that well. Anyone that knew me well at the time would be like, fuck this guy. Like he is Satan, the spawn of Satan. And I've apologized to a lot of people. I've done the best I can. And if I owe you an apology, please let me know. I will more than happily give it, and it'll actually be genuine. But yeah, that is an interesting thought. Like how many people go from being bullied to being bullied, and that's ties back to why I thought I was a narcissist, because it was a lot of manipulative tactics that I was using, and it was never physical bullying. It was just mental warfare, and that's I can be real nasty to people as well.
Yeah.
But I've learned that's a subset of A, head injuries, and B, bipolar
too. So I think we started down this track on you talking about the narcissism. What the psychiatrist was going to tell you was telling you something about being that narcissism.
So pre-crash is when I first became self-aware of it. I must have been in a down spiral, because me and my mum have the closest relationship that anyone's ever had, and probably way too unhealthily close. Like when I was in Melbourne, I'd speak to her 3 times a day, kind of thing. Like I need my mum there. And I just yelled at her one day. I got really angry and I yelled at her, and I was like, holy fuck, something is wrong with me. Like I would never yell at mum. So pre-crash, I was talking about wanting to travel and wanting to get more spiritual. So I was already kind of heading towards the right direction, but I know as a fact within myself that if I didn't have the car crash, I would have gone into hypomania and done something stupid.
Yep.
It would have accumulated to something, maybe not the crash, but it would have accumulated to something else. So I was going down the right track, and then the car crash happened. So I guess we might as well talk about that because we've mentioned it a whole bunch of times, and I've kind of danced around it online a lot. Some people know what happened, some don't. So I was working at an event for a company, and I was in charge of first I was in charge of merchandise, and then I was in charge of making sure everyone was happy, from influencers to the DJs. So a lot of that job includes drinking, not officially, but it's kind of an unspoken rule that you'll have a shot with the DJ kind of thing. And that's not to justify what I did whatsoever. It's just how I got to drinking that specific day. And I'd promised my ex-girlfriend that morning that I wouldn't drink. And I was in a state of hypomania exacerbated by bipolar 2. And I got into this state where nobody could convince me that I did not need to go to this after party, this thing back in Geelong, which was a 20-30 minute drive. I drove probably 4 weeks before, maybe for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I woke up, didn't remember how I got home, but I was safe. So in my head, I was like, it's calm. I'm the best driver ever. Keep in mind, I'd only had my license for about 3 months or 4 months at this point. So not an experienced driver.
Going. You only had your license for how many months?
4 months.
Not an experienced driver.
Not an experienced driver.
Tell them the next bit.
And I was drunk.
No. And the next bit.
What's the next bit?
How many points did you have left on your license?
I had 1 point. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So there was a lot of speeding fines too.
Yeah, right. So let's just give them the full story.
Yeah.
Because
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that. So I'd gotten three or four speeding fines already. And
so the idea of you waking up the next morning and saying, yeah, I'm a good driver, I'm a cool driver, I'm a calm driver, I'm okay, considering the history that you've got within 3 months of getting your license, none of that points to
a good driver.
I'm a good driver.
No,
right?
but to me, I was the world's best driver.
Exactly, yeah.
Like I would go 120, 130 on the freeway to work every weekend, and it was 100. The road rules are 100. And in my head, which is what I would call Tom logic, which is the bipolar 2. It's just easier than saying bipolar 2, so I'm just going to refer to it as Tom logic for now, is that I was a fantastic driver. I needed to get there quicker. The rules were dumb. It wasn't me that was dumb. It's the rules are dumb.
When we were there at Christmas, that was the one thing that, and I remember saying it to, it was either Sophie or your mum, was like, just how often the rules didn't apply to you, and you were very clear to saying the rules, they're not there for me, and that was going to be a problem.
There are a lot of rules, not a lot. There are a few rules throughout COVID that I think that shouldn't apply to everyone, and that's another conversation I don't even want to get into on the internet, because that'll just become a whole can of worms. Is it the term? That's not the point of this podcast. But there's so many. It was like these rules exist for normal people. I thought I was above everyone else, and that's why I thought I was narcissistic. I thought anyone that follows these rules was stupid, and that the rules weren't there to protect people, that they were there to make people sheep and make them dull. And I was very anti-establishment, probably as a byproduct of the mental illness and who I was hanging around with as well. I got it. So back to the night, I was there. I was an unexperienced driver. I was drinking a lot. We were in this hotel room. My boss had gone off with some people, and I was jealous. I was like, fuck, he's having this awesome night. And my whole life's been fueled by fun. Like fun, if it's fun, I'm doing it. And if it's not fun, I'm probably not going to do it. So maintaining things like, I don't know, putting deodorant on every day or brushing your teeth every day, I'm terrible at. Whereas
putting your clothes away.
Putting my clothes away, exactly. There's a million things that I'm sure you could rattle off right now. We could sit here.
Do you want me to? No.
We could sit here for 40. We could have an episode just about the things I won't maintain. But yeah, I was really jealous that he was going off and doing all these things, and I was like, I need to go to this after party. I deserve to have fun. Why is he having fun? And there was a dynamic between me and him that my opinions weren't heard. It was a startup, so it's very flat structured, and all the ideas were supposed to matter, but only one person's ideas mattered. And I had a chip on my shoulder because of that, and I really looked up to this person as well. And I'd made that known, but I was like, why the fuck does he get to have fun and I don't? So I was like, I had my keys. I had not my keys either. They were my ex-girlfriend's keys. It was her car. And my friend was telling me not to go. And once I get into Tom logic, there's no way on earth you can convince me otherwise. Like, it's not anyone's fault that's ever tried to stop me from doing anything, because I would do it myself. And everyone that's known me for some time does eventually figure that out. And they leave or they stay, and the people that have stayed are basically angels. But I got into the car, and I don't remember anything besides going... I didn't even have my high beams on in country Victoria. So in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. So whether it was a kangaroo jumping out in front of the car, that probably would have actually killed me. Whether it was kangaroo jumping in front of the car, or what actually happened was I got to a T intersection. I thought the road went straight, because it's a very deceptive road. I have spoken to locals about it. It's a Ballerine Highway or something like that. And instead of braking and turning left or right, I just tried to take the corner at 120, 130. And pre this happening, I was on a phone call with my ex-girlfriend and was just like yelling at her. Like, I was very angry. I was on my phone. I was drinking. I was speeding. And I think from all I remember is... I don't even remember the car rolling, but apparently it was 5 or 6 times that it rolled at least 90 kilometers an hour. I remember smelling smoke, undoing my belt buckle. The car was upside down. I hit the roof. Yeah, I hit the roof, and then I kind of. I don't remember this part. Somehow I got to the side of the road, but the car was like 40 meters away from the side of the road.
Right, okay.
So it was natural instincts. I remember thinking, fuck, the car is going to blow up. I'm going to burn to death, which was crazy. And then I remember lying on the side of the road. I was coughing blood. I've only pieced this together since, but about 20 minutes. And it was 2 a.m. I could have frozen to death. It was that cold. Like, I got down. It was in the middle of nowhere. And then this truck driver came past, and I did the wave, kind of like when you're on like in Castaway, like when you see the ship.
But you were also on the phone, weren't you?
I called mum.
You called mum, yeah.
I called mum, so I did the same thing. I called my mum in Malaysia, and I was like, help me, please. And she was on Google Maps. She's told me since, trying to figure out where the fuck I was. I couldn't read because I'd just been obliterated in a car crash. Like, all the airbags went off. If I was in any older of a car, I would have been gone in an instant.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was on the phone to mum trying to figure it out. She was trying to figure it out. She was like, call an ambulance. Once again, like the first time, I didn't call an ambulance. It took someone else to get me there. So I don't know. I don't know why my brain, what is in my brain that stops me from helping myself, but it's probably a lack of self-worth or something like that. I'm sure I'll figure it out at the psychiatrist and talk about it at some stage. But so yeah, once I was lying there for like 20 minutes coughing blood, and then the truck came, waved it down, he drove past me, and I was like, fuck, I'm dead. Like, I'm dead. And everything flashed before my eyes, and it was basically exactly like they describe it in the movies. And I don't know if that's because I'm such a movie guy that's how it was presented to me, or if that's just how it happens. But it was exactly that, and everything that was really important to me was made quite clear, and that was kind of nice in a way. But he helped me, and I remember being so vulnerable, absolutely fucked out of my mind, holding this guy's hand saying, tell me I'm not going to die, like bawling my eyes out. And he called the ambulance, and I don't remember anything for another 11 days. I was in post-traumatic amnesia for 11 days. I was so bad that I was too unwell to be taken to rehab. And the insurance people said that 9 times, like basically 1 in a million people would have survived that crash, and how bad the car was. I haven't managed to get the photos. I kind of want them for my own personal reasons, but they're not necessary. But apparently, nobody should have walked away from that. So that's the critical point number 2, I guess. We were coming to that really big point of self-destructive behavior, and then that's kind of how we got to being here.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about your experience through critical point 2?
Through critical point 2.
Yeah.
So I think from our point of view, or from my point of view, I am sort of a bystander to all your critical points, because I just lived through it through your mum, and just obviously see how she deals with it all, and how it affects her and the family, but also just understanding it from that point of view. But so it's interesting seeing that, we never really understood what was really wrong.
Yeah.
We never really understood the real highs and lows, because we were never really there.
Correct.
For the last, as you say, the last sort of 6-7 years. And to be honest, it's been because now looking back, we used to think, there was a point in time where we thought that your concussions as a 13, 14, 15-year-old had done something to your brain, and sort of all of that talk around
there
all
is
those
certainly
issues.
a possibility that has happened.
Because we saw a real change in you. And look, let's go right back. So you were how old when your mum and I got together? So
10.
So you were 10, right? And so there was already...
Fuck, I could answer that so quickly.
Yeah, I know. It's true.
Way too quickly.
So, and there were things that happened around that time with all of that. So there was already some childhood issues with all of that stuff,
absolutely.
Right? So there was already that, but we were okay to a point.
Yeah, absolutely. You used to take, we used to do golf lessons and things like that.
We were
cricket.
Right.
We were calm. Yeah,
you were all right. So,
for sure.
But then, something, and call it puberty, call it concussion, call it whatever. Something really changed, and your mum especially really put a lot of emphasis on all of those concussions, and that it had done something to you, and you weren't quite yourself, and all the rest of it, and then there were some really dark times where you were, you got quite dark and suicidal, and so there were a lot of times there where it was really, really bad and really hard to understand, and then I have my own issues, which we'll get to around stuff, and my own self-destructive tendencies and all the rest of it.
It's going to be a long series.
Jesus, there's a lot to unpack. So we had our own issues as well, but the timing now that we understand with what the most recent diagnosis is, that's around the timing that they talk about this starts to really come to the fore and starts really affecting teenagers and things like that. So,
because it's around 16 that it normally kicks in, and that was when. So just as a stat for people at home that don't know, people that have bipolar 1 or 2 are more likely to kill themselves than someone with severe depression or double depression. Not discrediting depression or double depression. It's just someone that is severely depressed, as word for word my psychiatrist put it, aren't going to do it because they're not going to get out of bed. Whereas someone with bipolar is going to have a mood swing and do something extreme, like the critical points we've spoken about.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it just makes, the most recent diagnosis makes so much more sense to us.
Yeah.
It's like a real clarity now of understanding exactly what we're dealing with, which we have struggled with. Your mum struggled with she and I have struggled with at different times, and you and I have struggled with. We've
Absolutely.
all struggled in our different ways
Yeah,
around.
and my sisters as well.
And-
like,
absolutely.
It's affected the whole family,
and
for
not,
sure.
because we didn't really understand, and because it was such a shift from where you were.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and all of the diagnosis, and I'll use that loosely because of
Where we are now. Yeah.
Never really made any sense.
No.
Obviously, as a family, we're not really on board with all of the chemist shop that you've got open to you.
Correct,
because
yeah.
of all of the things they've been giving you, and
Yeah.
without really giving you any plan of
No,
why
in
or
a s-
how to run it down, or how to live with this thing and
Yeah.
not be so
just-
reliant on this stuff.
Yeah,
you
yep.
know, but without any real clear indication of why.
Mm.
And I don't think we understand that if there's, particularly the way that the psychiatrist has talked about it, especially now, is saying, understand if there's a chemical imbalance, you need to get some stuff aligned before you can start really
Absolutely.
getting deep and work it out. But you'd never had a conversation with anyone prior to that actually said, we're only going to give you this because we want to get you to a point, and then we're going to work out how to help you, right?
Correct, yeah.
It was just, here, take this and...
It was take this and
Go
run.
away.
And
Yeah.
what I'm dependent on right now is it's diazepam. It's commonly known as Valium.
Yep.
So how I got onto that was I was working at a Real Blokes door handle shop. It was it was like a local family business. There was the boss was just the biggest Australian mental health doesn't exist, fuck you, bullshit kind of thing. And he was like, go to this doctor down the street. He'll give you something to sort you out. I was 19 or 20 at the time. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. I'd love to not have panic attacks. Done. Sure. So I went and got it. And that doctor let me get to a point where I was severely addicted. And I still have issues with it. But I've come down, I think, like 90% or something in a year, which is a lot of people just don't come off.
Yeah.
And I do have a plan for coming off it. But the plans that were in place in Australia, I would have never have got off it because I wouldn't have been on this new trial of things, because with bipolar 2, you do have to have something to bring the gap closer. It does have to... You do have to bring the gap closer, and you have to stop the high highs and the low lows. You need to kind of make it within that middle band.
Yeah.
From what it's been explained to me anyway, that I'm
Yeah.
going to be on that for life pretty much.
Yeah.
But I'd prefer that than just before just being things thrown at me, just a test dummy, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
This has worked for other patients, but everyone's different. Everyone's got their own...
Yeah, but the thing was, it didn't look like, from the outside looking in, it never looked like it was really working that well. That was the other thing. There was, and like you said, there's always an issue. There's always what was the word you used before? I can't remember what it was.
There's always drama.
There's always a drama,
yeah.
right? So there's always something going on, and if it wasn't something driven by the mania or something driven by the depression, it was a health issue because you weren't, and not just the panic attacks and all that sort of stuff.
No, God, no. I've had kidney stones 3 times.
But stuff
in
like
a
that,
year and
and
a
your
half.
stomach stuff and all that sort of stuff.
Stomach
You got
bleeding.
stomach bleeding, all that sort of stuff. So it's
Yeah.
not just been, there's these big swings and causing
God,
issues.
no.
It's like the drugs do stuff, right?
They do.
So that's why, but it was never a plan to say, here's an 18-year-old kid, we're just going to give him all these drugs and then we're going to work out how to help him. It's just, we're going to give him all these drugs.
Yeah.
And then hopefully it'll become someone else's problem.
Yeah.
As I said, don't want to turn it into a medical...
We hate medical people in
people
Australia.
bashing
yeah.
it, but that's just what was happening. So, and it was difficult sitting from the outside looking in, seeing how this was ever going to change. That was one of the things. But the other thing was clearly that, from my point of view, was I had no idea what was wrong. I had no idea how to fix anything or do anything about it.
Yep.
And when you were down, I didn't like who you were.
Yeah.
I didn't like what you did to your family.
Yeah.
But probably more to the point for me was I didn't like the mirrors that you would hold up
Yeah,
to me.
to you, right, yeah, yourself.
So I didn't like. So when you were down, I didn't like because that reflected when I'm not when I'm feeling when I'm
physical,
down.
Yeah,
I'm a horrible person, right?
Yeah, yep.
And the same when you're up. It's not like the mirror when you're up is a different sort of mirror. The mirror when you're up to me is because when you're up and you're up and about and the mania is in, the energy level, everything's up and everything's. But again, there were times where if you're up and I'm down,
it's just triggering.
It just triggers stuff.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
you just kept triggering me at these points, right?
Yeah.
Now I've never been diagnosed, but I don't have what you've got, right? I'm a bit more
a little bit more leveled.
A little bit more leveled,
Yeah,
right? But
sure.
everybody has
ups
has
and
ups
downs.
and downs. It's
Absolutely.
all quite normal, and everyone has their issues, and no one likes being shown a mirror of what's wrong with them and all the rest of it, right? So and that's sort of the thing, but with you having such big ups and downs, the triggers were big.
Oh, God.
And I didn't deal with that at all well.
No.
And that's where a lot of our issues came, was because you would be up here or down here, and I would just not. You'd be pushing buttons, and we just couldn't meet in the middle anywhere. And,
no, absolutely not.
And so this all gives some understanding to that, so I understand that better, because I just didn't understand. I couldn't understand you. I couldn't understand where you're at. I couldn't understand why you would. I couldn't understand, like you're saying, you felt like you were quite a narcissist and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
There were behaviours there that just didn't.
At one stage, I was
great,
seriously convinced I was a sociopath or a psychopath.
Yeah.
Like, I've looked up tests, and I was like, I'm fucking mental. Like, there is something seriously wrong with me, and I knew that. And I knew, like, anyone that's dated me would say, probably sociopath.
Yeah.
Like, very close to that. But now that anyone...
I bet they're all dead now and buried, so we don't have to worry about them.
They're all dead and buried. They're in a garden somewhere that nobody's ever finding. But I've locked away the key too. But no, like, especially my recent ex-girlfriend, it makes a lot of sense because I can be very caring and I can give the world, but I can also be very narcissistic, essentially, or those tendencies. So I don't blame anyone for not understanding, because I didn't understand myself. Yeah. But I think that's it. Like, I think it's time-wise, that's a really good place to stop, because we've talked about you and your mirrors, and that's what we'll get into next episode.
Oh, okay. Do we have to?
Yeah, we have to. God damn straight we did. We just talked about how shit I am for fucking an hour. But it's a good segue. So, if you did enjoy, we'll be on every streaming service possible. Spotify, Apple Music. Download it, please. That would be fantastic. And YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. And eventually, I like this little setup. I really do.
Good. Yeah,
this is a good little setup.
We'll keep this.
We'll keep this, yeah. This is a lot nicer than what we had. And we had some debacles in what we were going to use to record and everything as well. But I'm glad we did it. I feel pretty good.
No, it's good.
I feel pretty good after that.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
So we'll see you next time, in a week's time, hopefully.
Yep.
A week works.
Week works, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll do a couple, because we'll get pretty busy from there.
We are, but we are also going to do some on location in Tropical Paradise as well.
Tropical Paradise, yeah. We're going to be talking about mental health while sipping, for me, mocktails, and Brett probably a cocktail.
Under the palm trees in Langkawi.
Correct. So, and eventually, hopefully, we get some guests on that are a little bit more well-versed. Once we've spoken about who we are and how getting to know us, we can get some people on, whether it be via Zoom or in person. They're a lot more professional and can actually speak on the subjects and provide a lot more value to the people that are listening. So thank you so much if you've made it the whole way through, and if you didn't make it the whole way through, that's also fine. But thank you very much. I appreciate the support ongoing. If you want to see more of me, you can go to twitch.tv/DefsNotTom. And if you want to see more of Brett, watch the podcast. We've also got a Substack. I'll put that in the description below. But thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.